that's a vibe right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey. Whoa. I unleash my soul every time I roll to the side of the beach. I let my mind permeate the heat until I feel safe enough to let it go freely. I'm moving like the seaweed in between my feet. See, it's nothing breaking my stride. I keep on fronting, but it's not gonna help me. So I feel stealthy for times get wealthy. I just get up under that rock and shine brighter. My lighter inside of my mind, so I find it. Ayy, then I ride it. Ayy, then I hide it. Then I'm out of. Ayy, sight with the time being, I'm fine. Knowing these things, rhyming my life up in this pad until I go black, and then I fall out. But then it's all back. Cause fuck, I don't know what is up, but down is here. So I'm back around to crown these things. I'm hounding things, reversing ties and lying. Oh, this beat is cool.
Hey, thank you,
Welcome
bro.
to Vine Tree Radio. It's your boy West here chilling.
Howdy, wowie, how's it going?
You know we got a guest. Introduce yourself.
Oh, what's up? My name's Arianna Lady Basco. Hi.
Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming out tonight. It's a beautiful day out.
It's beautiful.
You know, we don't usually get to be here in the early morning, so
Yeah.
to all the birds and everything.
Oh, I got you guys up early this morning? Is that what happened?
Varies. I feel like we've had a couple morning ones, couple night ones.
You were like, yo, what about 9 a.m.? I was like, 9 a.m. sounds like we're stretching.
Yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, I feel like it depends how they've worked out. You know, sometimes the guests can only make it in the morning. Sometimes they can only make it at night. You know, so I feel like this one worked out perfectly for us though, because I mean, we just happened to run into you like doing your your show last Wednesday.
I know, crazy, right?
And if it wasn't for that, I mean, we might have not crossed paths like that, because soon enough you'll be out of here.
And Ariel for suggesting it, because we could have just kicked it. I mean, I didn't know that you guys had a podcast, so it's pretty cool.
Exactly, yeah. That's a crazy thing to think about. Even going back to, we just had Ariel on too as well, and we had a conversation about how like they met, and like when he was showing his music to him, and he was telling, at that time I guess he was already going to the mics and all that, and he was telling me how he was like developing himself in there. And that was really cool to know that like that was a part of you, someone you met when you were making your first music.
Yeah. No, Ariel was such a dope figure that we've had since like the very beginning, and like I'm so thankful for him because he's helped us get to like really cool shows and meet a lot of cool people such as yourself, and going to the Palms Up show. And it was, man, I guess we could start with that a little bit, is talking about like the Palms Up Academy, because that,
and the old location too, because we happened to get to go to that one too, of all places, and the other one, because I didn't even know that it had switched when I went to the new one. So it was interesting to me. I was like, oh wow, I remember like everything about it before. Like,
Yeah. Well, first of all, Ariel is so unassumingly a connector, right? You meet that guy and you're like, who is this guy? And then, I mean, it just goes to show, and I always say it in my spaces that I run, like, you always give your all in whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter if there's 2 people in the audience or 1,000 or thousands. You can have thousands of people in the audience and none of them are listening to you because they're all just like wasted and just doing their own thing, But you never know who you're going to meet and how they're going to change the trajectory of your life. And Ariel's one of those people that's just like, you meet him and you're like, oh, he knows all the, I didn't think you'd know all these people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's first of all. But in that same spirit, the Palms Up Academy, the spaces that I run are definitely an intersection. It's an intersectionality of gender and culture and age and beliefs, and hopefully is a safe place for folks to speak their views, to express themselves, but also have a dialogue. Find their gauge of how they want to navigate, not just their art, but how they move around in the world. What's their actual true narrative,
That's really cool. Did you start with Palms Up, or was there iterations before that?
Oh man, I've been doing this for too long. I started, have you ever been to the Poetry Lounge which is on Melrose and Fairfax. It's like the largest and longest running open mic in the nation and possibly the world. It started in the 90s in our living room, and my brother Dante is one of the founders. So I've been doing poetry forever. I'm 41 years old. I don't
believe it.
I'm 41 years old. So we came here in the 80s. So in the 90s, from the Bay Area. So in the 90s, we, we're doing art and stuff. And then this poetry lounge starts. So that happens. But then I moved to New York for 5 years. But when I got back, pretty quickly, like 2006, I started Tarred and Feathered, which was an iteration of this work, and then Tarred and Feathered, and then I just started doing Speakeasy at the Last Bookstore in downtown LA, and held that down for like 6 years, and that overlapped with the Great Mic, and the Great Mic became Our Mic, and then Our Mic ended abruptly, and there was like a 9-month period where I was like, I've been holding space weekly for over a decade at this point, and it felt so like sparse. I was like, what, am I gonna do this again? Is this a sign that I stopped doing this? And then 9 months later, Palms Up Academy was born, and then we haven't taken a break since, except for the global pandemic that just happened.
When you were young, did you know you were like gonna write poetry? Like, was that something you did as like a kid, or was that like your second, like something you learned like from somebody else later on?
I think poetry is. I've always written poetry. I think when I discovered that, like, even writing itself, the drawing of letters, realizing like, discovering that a like a letter is just a curved line, and how cool is that? That's all a letter is, and then you put those letters together and all these curved lines together, and it's like, oh, that's a word, and that's how we communicate. It was just always so. This is just how my brain is wired to think about writing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I've been writing poetry since I learned how to write.
So I know for me that was like my first like form of writing, at least like it was like poetry first, and then from there like I knew like I'm a Zam, one who could like sing, and then I started to try to write songs for her when I was like 15, and like before that though all I had was like poetry. Really, that was like my first avenue into writing. So I feel like that's interesting. People's like avenue into usually writing anything is usually some poem or something like.
So y'all go way back. Where did you guys meet?
We met in high school, but we didn't really start hanging out too much until like college.
Yeah, we actually randomly had a class senior year where like we were like partners on like the whole class, but we didn't know each other at all. We just sat next to each other, and like, you just get partnered with the person next to you. So like that whole class we did, like we would do our work together, but maybe like a year or two after that, I think like in college,
that's when we really started like hanging out.
And you had already went to New York at that time. Like you had went to New York and came back.
Yeah, it was when I was moved back home here, and then I was starting to go to COC and making music, and then I was like, I think I know someone who works on music. This guy right here. Showed him some stuff, and since then, we're here now.
And you lived in New York. Oh, you went to NYU.
I did. I went there for a little bit. I wish I could have stayed there longer, but it's a very expensive city. And I was not in the best financial position at the moment, so it was.
Yeah, you went there like right out of high school, like basically like.
I did. I went there right out of high school. Was there for some time, and was there for about like a year and a half, and it was amazing. I love New York. New York honestly feels like home more than LA does. But
where did you live?
In downtown Brooklyn.
What part?
Metro Tech.
Very cool. I lived in Boerum Hill, like the Atlantic Pacific stop.
Okay.
Over there, and then I lived kind of by Prospect Park. It was. Yeah, I have very fond memories of New York. But every time I go back to New York, it's like now I never go. It's so interesting, that city, because it's constantly changing. So this New York that exists in my memory of that time is no longer there. But so when I go to New York, like of course I build new memories, but I never really go back to the. Well, that's not true. I do have some of the feelings that I had back then. I was there during 9/11 too, and when the world was just like, I was just like, whoa, what's happening?
That's crazy. Yeah. So what would you say is like the biggest change in feeling that you've noticed within like the city there, or like the biggest change in general?
Well, for me, it's more of a sentimental, like nostalgic thing. Because when I lived in New York, it's a whole thing. Like I moved out of LA. I just got out of what we call the cult. I was in a cult for like 14 years. And I made a stand, and that led to me losing my relationship with my brothers. So they like disowned me in like '99, and I was just suffocating in LA. I was like, I have to get out. And my boyfriend at the time was from New York, so we moved to New York in 2000, and so just that, and then we were together for the next 6 years, and then I came back to LA, and so just that alone, and that experience of being with a local of the East Coast, and the fam that I met there, and just the shared experiences of what that is, and that in that time too. I would never repeat these years, but I love the years that I had. But like learning how to adult is so damn difficult. I mean, it's that moment of like, how are people living their lives? Like, okay, now I'm independent, I'm out there on my own, but like, how really does this thing work? How are they just like going on trips and doing all these things? So there were so many things, and just emotionally and financially, and that I was figuring out. So that's just not going to be the case. And that informed my experience of New York and how I navigated through that city and the things that I experienced. But you know, it's always there. It's always a special place. Actually, recently we had for our film, The Fabulous Filipino Brothers, we were in New York a couple times, but we were specifically at this one event. And I have 4 older brothers, but me and 2 of my brothers, we were in Brooklyn having a meal with a friend of ours. And I was like, oh, we're kind of by like my old spot. It's like, all right, let's check it out. And we walked there, which is so crazy to be back on like the stoop of the apartment building of this place when at the time I was, I was heartbroken about my family and my brothers, and I just would have never imagined that they would ever be on this stoop that I like was on day in and day out, and it was like its own kind of poetry. And then we walked the Brooklyn Bridge that night, which was also crazy. Just experiencing that with them, and talking about New York and talking about 9/11 and my experience that day, and just sharing that time with them. Which again, life is such a trip. I don't know how old y'all are, but like I'm a single mom of 2, and I've gone through many eras of my life, and the more that I live, it's just patience seems to like tug at me, and just like give it time. Like give life time. It'll work itself out. It's pretty amazing.
That's dope. That's true though. I feel like a lot of things are just a matter of time, just kind of waiting out. But I'm also really you were saying like the nostalgic factor of living there is something that you can't recreate, and that's something that's really interesting, because that made me think of like even here, like when I think of even like living now here, like I've grown up most of my life in Santa Clarita. I've moved here when I was like 2, lived here until I was like 18, and then went away for a little bit, came back after like 2 years, and then I've been here for a couple, like maybe 3 more years or so, or 5 years, I guess, I don't know. But it's weird because like despite having been here the whole time, I feel like I find myself constantly getting into like these moments of nostalgia, and like seeing these things and being like, wow, as much as I don't get me wrong, I love it here, like in Santa Clarita or LA, like to a certain extent, but I feel like I'm in love more with like the nostalginess of it than I am with what it is now to me. Like, and I feel like that's part of the reason why I feel less inclined to stay here, is because there's moments of like chasing that kind of nostalgic feeling of like, oh, I wish this was what it was, but it just isn't anymore. And I don't know.
Yeah, you know, nostalgia is a funny thing. First of all, are you like 27, 25? 25. Okay. I mean, a couple of things about that. It's like, so, you know, sometimes, well, if you're with somebody, you have like a song, like that's your song, and then you play it and it's all heartbreaking. I have a tendency, or not a tendency, but an exercise of, because of that nostalgia, because of that attachment to that song, I will play that song over and over and over again until I negate that memory or negate or dishonor even that nostalgia. It'll always be there, but until there's a repurpose for the song, like that I'm actually like experiencing that
like
song and a new memory.
In a way.
Yeah, and until it's like it becomes not its own, but it becomes other memories as well as that one. You know what I mean? Because I don't. I always am. I do want to, like, I'm a poet. I mean, of course, I respect time and space when things occurred, but I also try to stay in present time and try to like not have things tug at me. But when you say something like this, so that's what it made me think about. And you're like, well, it also made me think of when I was your age. And I was living in I mean, just like mid-20s to 30s. Like, I went through a whole kind of, I think that whole decade, just kind of nostalgic feeling, because for me, I was like becoming an adult, but there were so many parts of what I thought I knew at a time when I mean, I did know things, but then you didn't. And then there's like a simplicity to that. But then you can't unsee the things that you're learning, because that's why you're growing. You know, you're growing. But it's like, and whatever I thought I was complaining about or whatever it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years prior to that, it's just you're just approaching it from a totally different lens. And when I started doing some adulting and growing up, it's like, oh damn. I mean, just even always appreciated my parents, but like really appreciating, oh damn, what it means to earn money and provide and like for yourself, feed yourself, get places, like just all of these little things that you start to see your life from a different lens and understand, like, oh, I lived all that time in my nostalgia and just had a different lens on, and it's still always there, you know, but going back to it, it's like, it's bittersweet because you're a different person too. And that's part of why it's so sad that it's not the same. Yeah. It's not the same because you're also not the same. You know, like, true. So how could it ever be?
Very good point, honestly.
I definitely think about that at times, like the push and pull, like when it comes to like the changes that you like make in life and like you have to make. Because I feel like at times, like you said, living in the present, like I feel like at times, like you see it in retrospect, like in hindsight, you know what I mean? Like and you're just like, you have to almost look back at it like, all right, well, I'm this way now, like, and this is like the response, like the result of it, if you will. I feel like it's sometimes better to look at it in the present, like as if it's like everything is gonna change, a part of like, you know, you changing. But I feel like I oftentimes like catch it like later on, you know, like I'm just like, oh, wow, like kind of like the same way you feeling, like it's nostalgic in a sense, like it's almost like in looking back, you're like, oh, all right, like.
You can't always. I mean, life is about living too, and it's a balance of reflecting and living. And point of view, right? Like your situation, the Santa Clarita thing. I grew the Bay, but then we moved down here in like '85. But we grew up in a town called Paramount, and then we moved to Downey. So like in Downey, we've been there since '92, like our family home, '92, and I went to school in Downey, and then I went to performing arts high school. Like I commuted, and then when I was 19, I moved to New York, traveled the world, moved back here, had my own spot in Long Beach, had my own spot in Hollywood, like had a big house with my brothers at one point. Then I had my own spot in Hollywood. Then I turned 31 and I get pregnant. That was like my birthday present. I conceived a child. And then she was born Christmas Eve, and she was my Christmas present too, right? In my golden year, actually, because I was born on March 31st and I was 31. It was like a crazy thing. But, and I did most of my pregnancy at my apartment, but then that last month I was like, yeah, I can't. I'm moving back to Downey, and I've been in Downey for 10 years, but the nostalgicness of that house, like that house is when, my brother took when we were still living in Paramount, but they were all working actors. So they didn't live with us at that point. They were older. They're like early 20s, but they would have parties at our house, like we would have big Hollywood parties, like in a suburb in Downey, all these, 90s cats just at our house, and we'd have the DJ and we do karaoke sometimes. Like there's so many other men, because we have such an open door policy. Like so many people have come through our house, so many faces of all different walks of life, and so many memories have been built in that house, in every era of that house. And then I moved out, and now I'm back, and I've been there for the last 10 years, which is crazy because there was a time in my life where I lived in 11 places in 5 years. And I've been in this house.
That's what I was thinking about. You're saying, like, you lived a lot of places. Like,
yeah.
I wonder if I've ever will live as many places as you, like.
I mean, maybe,
Because I've moved around a lot, so I feel like I have somewhat of a start. I wonder, like, if I'll ever, like, get to that many, like, stops on my thing. And I like the thing you said about the open door policy, too. I've heard about a lot of places like that. I was curious about that. Like I was hearing some interview recently, and they were talking about there was, like, a place like that where it was, like, they just knew the address, and you can always go to this address, and people would perform there, and different stuff would happen. And I was telling us, right? Wasn't that Ariel's about that? He was just talking about that, and I was just like, wow, that's really cool to hear that, like, that exists in places where it's like, I've learned, like, places like that, but like I never heard of nothing like that where it's like he went to something like that. That's who it was. Yeah, he said he performed there.
Oh, well, I mean, that's very cool. I say it more in just the practice of our house is generally always open to like our friends and homies.
It had like memories
stay.
And stuff was built there, and like
yeah. I mean, people don't just walk through the door and start performing like
no,
that. but then this last 10 years, right? Like the song, like I was saying, like a song and listening to it over and over again until you create more memories. That's like the Downey house, because now I have 2 kids, and now we're building new memories in this house that are completely not attached to the memories of, whatever, the 90s, the 2000s, whatever went on, but are, and it's just in addition to this tapestry, and it's a totally different vibe, and it's a totally different thing. And then I got poker night every Tuesdays, and I have these gatherings with Palms Up, and it goes through its own iterations, and just being in a place of like accepting the ebbs and flows of life and what life is presenting to you right now, and it's okay that it wasn't that, because it's this now.
Yeah, I definitely had to learn that myself. I feel like coming up, because I first lived in Van Nuys when I was born until like 3rd grade, and then I moved to Lancaster, and then I lived there until I was like I think like until high school, pretty much, because I lived there all the way and I only lived here when I was like 15, 14, like right at that time. I just moved and went straight to high school. So like every like pivotal little time, like I just moved to like a different area. And then in school I went out here for like a little bit, and then I went to Monterey for like 2 years and like finished school in the Bay, and that was really cool. And I met Chris Siders there, and also he graduated at the time, and he performed in my class. And then he was someone else who knew Ariel too, and that was a random connection, and he knew the mic and everything. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that when I met him, but
I missed him when he came through. I was shooting that day, but I saw footage and people were telling me that he came through. Yeah.
He's really cool.
Very cool.
I wanted to kind of touch on you mentioning like kind of like forming new memories over something by kind of like repeating it or like exposing yourself to it over and over. And it made me think of like when you repeat a word over and over again and you kind of disassociate like the meaning of the word and it just becomes like a jumble. And I'm kind of curious as to what your thoughts are of that, like poetically, like because I know we give the meanings to words, but sometimes I feel like when we say a word too much, like it loses its meaning.
Yeah. But sometimes that's the point. Because what's your context to the word? And you want to recreate your context to the word. And there's different, like, there's one's art and what hypes people about one's art. And that's cool. And as an artist, whether you're singing or a poem, like, people are going to want to hear the hits or whatever that you're known for. You got to do that. You got to train to, like, rediscover that every time. So yeah, part of that is repetition. Like doing my opening piece and my closing piece, I do that every week. But every time it's a challenge of disassociating with whatever it's supposed to be and being in present moment and what it's supposed to be right now. Not what it was last week or what it was for someone who's coming through the doors that like saw me 5 years ago and is like, oh, I know this piece. Like, it's got to be new every time. So it's not recreating what you've done every time. It's in the moment discovering this piece like it's the first time I ever did it. Like, these are the people, like, these people have never heard this shit. Just because you've done it a million times doesn't mean they've seen it, you know? And they have to, then allowing them to have their own experience as well. But then also giving yourself that experience of, like, discovering newness in your own shit, right? I mean, yeah, that part. And then there's, like, also as an artist, because there's your artist life and then there's your real life, like, but they should be one and one. But sometimes because you have to repeat pieces, that's why I'm like, I have pieces where I, emote issues and things, but I always open and close with those pieces, the pieces that I do, because that's the energy that I want to put out in the world. Like, I ain't trying to be a trauma poet, you know what I mean? And we're gonna sing about heartbreak, and it's gonna happen. And yes, you got to recreate that every time. But I run my emotions. My emotions don't run me. So that's part of singing it over and over again, or listening to that song over and over again, till I'm not numb to it. That feeling doesn't own me. That when that song comes on, I can think of you fondly. If it's like a breakup or something, I can think of you fondly, and it's not attached to all of these heavy feelings of the lack of everything that was lacking in whatever the relationship. But it can exist in this, like, beautiful place that it was at all.
Wow. Now you're actually making me think, because I feel like I had a thought on this recently, because just this last week we got to perform, like, our music for, like, the first time, like, ever, like the music we've made together. And like a song that I performed, I feel like I had a feeling like that about, and I started to have those feelings about it, like, in like learning to perform it. Like, I felt like I had the thought of, like, I don't know if I would have been able to do this maybe like a year ago or like 2 years ago, because I don't think I didn't attempt to get fully into it like that in practicing it and performing it. But as I did now, I realized how much that would have took out of me, and maybe why I didn't, because I wrote it about, like, what you're talking about, like, you know what I mean? It was like about a breakup, like about, and I feel like I had that experience with it where it's like the more times I said it and the more times I practiced it, I started having fun with it, and it actually started to feel different than the way it ever felt before. Because it was like a kind of like a pain, like, expression when I, like, first made it, you know? It was just like me in, like, a bad moment about it and, like, expressing myself. But it was wild to see myself now, like, having, like, a goofy time with it. I'm like, wow, it's kind of lost its meaning in that way, you know?
Everything is subtext, right? Because I had this piece, like, my next boyfriend's gonna be a man. He's gonna find me in those moments of disparity and see a light coming out of my ass anyway. And it goes on to talk about, like, this next boyfriend. But I did a short film about it. Well, I did a series of short films, but how I portrayed it in the short film was a one take, and this girl in bed, and she's spitting this poem, and as she's spitting this poem, various guys come in and out of her bed, right? Like this idea that of these relationships not working out, and it just keeps going. And then like there's like 5 of them. Like they come in, they like snuggle for a second, and then they walk off and whatever they're doing, and she's just ripping this poem. My next boyfriend's gonna hold me like the night. Da, da, da. And in that intention and in that subtext, and what was driving me in that moment is this feeling and this swelling of an excitement that someone new is coming into my life, but then they leave, and then in that moment of playing each moment of like of hope and disappointment all in one, right? But then I've also done that poem very, I don't know, with a guitar, and very jovially, and like all hope and all optimistic and all like just the most joyous celebration of a person who stands in unapologetically what they want. And how beautiful and how pure is that, and why can't I say these things, and I will, and these are the things that I want, and put out there for myself. So it's all subtext, and it's all where you're at, and you could do it. I could have 3 shows back to back and do that same piece, and every time it'll come out different. But then here it is again. What am I trying to portray? How is that in the context of the set? What do I need to bring to my piece that's going to make sense? Or maybe I'm just doing one piece, and that's the piece that I'm going to do. What does that look like in the context of the rest of the people that were up? And what does this whole, how do you read? It's reading a room. It's reading a room, or if you have a whole set, it's building your set, and where does that fall in your set? And then and not just of the content, but how you're saying it. Because communication, look, I could say fuck you to you right now, but fuck you can mean so many things, right? It's just how you say it, what the intention behind it is. That's the same thing with any piece across the board. You know what I mean? Even if it's like a really aggressive anger, like last week, right? I go, don't you dare let them make you feel less than. But I did that piece 2 weeks ago somewhere else, and it was light and strong, but it was like light and like, don't you dare, like it was a hype. Like it was like, it wasn't
like it had a different
angry.
Sauce to
Different
it.
tone.
I get it. That's tone. Yeah, I get you.
That's really cool. It's really cool how you talk about analyzing like the overall performance and like what other sets are going on, where does your piece fit in there, and then also kind of reading the room. Because I feel like, and this was honestly one of the things that I loved the most about Palms Up Academy and about yourself, honestly, because it's amazing to see what you do in the sense of reading the room. Because we're talking about just like your individual piece, right? But now I want to touch on you kind of curating and overseeing the thing. And when you go through and you observe all the different performances, and you kind of pick and choose how to combine them and mold them into something new, into something just amazing in the moment. And it's a while to see that, but I feel like that's like a huge skill, or like the big thing that goes into that is your ability to read the room and ability to find where the pieces fit together within that. I want to talk to you about like, how did you go about starting doing that? What led to that?
Well, I think probably what started me doing that was, when I was born, I'm the last of 5, and I'm the only girl. So, and in my family, we're very close. We've all had our ups and downs, but definitely most of my life, it's been about the boys. It's been about the brothers, like unto themselves. Like not my parents didn't kind of delegate that. They just were like, we're the brothers, So always feeling like othered. But on top of that, I was born with one ear. So being born with one ear, you hear it mono, but it's also like a physical thing. Like I don't have an eardrum in inner ear, nothing on my right side. So, but then also physically, I didn't have an ear. So that starts to inform my path. On a social level, kids are mean, and then just feeling like, other, like just deformed, like just different, right? All my life. And but then it also creates this other tool. It's not even a tool, but I can only hear out of one ear, and if I want to, I gotta really listen. I gotta really, really listen, and really, especially if you're sitting on. I mean, I'm glad we have headphones on right now, because I'm like, oh, this is the worst place for me to sit, because I'm gonna be turning to you guys all the time. But this is great because I can hear you. But yeah, I've had to always work harder to listen, and then in the exercise of that, then you start hearing things that people aren't even saying. You start being able to like just read them, just read them. And then also, like, the cult was really an acting class, but it was just difficult to be in. Then I'm studying, because what is acting? But it's just a study of human behavior. That's all that acting really is. And not that that's simple. That's not a simple thing. It's the study of human behavior, and then being able to manifest that, to also do it. So I think those combinations of things, of like feeling unseen and unheard all my life from the people that I love most, to actually only hearing in mono, like I'm one ear away from silence, to being exposed to these ways of looking at life, because I'm studying acting, because I'm studying the behavior of life. I think all those things combined really teed me up to do the work that I do now, and to be able to, and I mean, yes, you're speaking specifically in B-sides at Palms Up when we remix The Night, but I used to do that at our mic, but I used to do it every single person that came up to the mic. That's why I had to really limit the mic list. We'd do the lottery, and I'd really limit the mic list. I would get them all up in B-sides. At the time, it's called second round. But I would get every single person up in something. And then when we did Palms Up Academy, I was like, I want to separate it out, because then I started this class called Art Class for Creatives. But even those things, but even the way in which I see and curate those is the way that I see and curate everything. Raising kids, a script, a play, a song, a poem. It's like assessing everything, and just and then finding the story. Finding the story, But everything's considered, and everything's weighed. And then you make a decision, not, what's the word, definitively, like you just make, assertively, and then you just do it, and then you just leap. And you could have made so many, and isn't that life though? There could have been so many other people I could have brought Ariel up to do his beat thing, and then had him rap over, and then had someone dance over that, and then I don't know, who knows? It could have gone anywhere. But that's a life thing too. It's like, yeah, it could have gone anywhere, but then just make the decision and then go. Assess
I
it, weigh it,
remember
and
at
go.
the other one, I think the first one I ever did, I think you brought me into one that was like, I think I had to act or something, like I had to act sad or something like that, like, because you know what I mean, like it was like a group one. I don't remember what it was exactly, but I had to express like an emotion, and that was really cool. I was like a part of like one with a whole bunch of people, and everyone on this side was doing the other one, and I think somebody was doing like a poem while that was going on.
Yeah. It sounds right up my alley. Well, so the thing about that too, so that's as the person who's curating it, and like I mean, that's how I produce too. Like, well, because you're dealing with the content of the art, but then you're also dealing with the people that are doing it. And then how do you navigate that, right? And being able to like assess that quickly. But as the experience of B-sides and as the experience when you're going through something like that as an artist and as a human being, something's like so spontaneous and so raw and such a rare moment of exposure, because you didn't come to this mic to do an acting class. You didn't come to this mic to do an exercise. You came here. Come on, you brought your shit. You gonna shine. But the whole thing at Palms Up, the whole thing, I don't care if it's called Palms Up, Armor, whatever spaces that I curate or things that I'm involved in, is you shine, I shine. So you gonna be here. We're gonna get it in together, and I'm not going to tell you like, oh, you got to support each other. It's like, do it by example. I'm fucking here. I'm sitting here paying attention to every single, are you? Or are you on your phone right now? Really? Like, you going to do us like that, you know? So when you're in a B-side situation and you're having such a present time and then you're asked to come up, it's like, that is the moment of your own process with yourself. I'm not there to dictate that experience. I'm just here like, here's an opportunity. Here's a place that you can stand if you want. And then what are you going to do with that space? Are you going to take up that space? Are you going to share that space? Are you going to step up to that space? And maybe you're not ready yet. Maybe you just take it in while you're standing up there in the space. Cool. That's cool too. But that's to each and everyone's process. But I love doing it because it's like, most artists, unless you are like signing up for Second City or acting class or a voice class, which you totally do, training is so important, you're not really put in those situations unless you get real famous and you get on SNL.
I'm curious to know how you got into that though, the classes and all that, like the classes part of the like Palms Up, like the teaching, because I haven't really heard too much about like programs like that, so it's really cool that you guys offer that. And I want to know how does that go down.
Yeah, there's a few programs we do. So Palms Up, we have an open mic, and that's probably the most accessible point to us. It is the most accessible point. And then we have Chords, which is taught by Fuzzy. He wasn't there the other night, but that's Fuzzy is this Korean American singer, songwriter, rapper, multi-instrumentalist, super dope. He tours with Public Enemy, and he's was on The Voice and does like K-pop stuff. So sick. A few years ago, he's been riding with me since the Great Mic days, our Mic days. And a few years ago, my niece, who is Batgirl in the DC universe, she was in Birds of Prey. She plays Cassandra Cain.
That's sick.
But my brother and my sister-in-law, she was in like ukulele, and then they're like, she should learn guitar. Do you know a guitar teacher? Sent Fuzzy over there, and he's been with her ever since and taught my other niece, her sister, bass, and my nephew drums. So now they're like a little band. So she did the movie, but she's like releasing her music now. And then I had Fuzzy teach my daughter. I think you guys came a little late for that, but and my daughter is now doing her album. She's 9. So Fuzzy's like this amazing being, and I got him a job at that school as the music teacher at the campus that we're on. So there's Chords. So there's Chords, and that you get like this private time with Fuzzy, which is super dope because he'll talk to you about anything. He'll work on your voice and instrumentation, rapping, whatever, to like, how do I brand myself? How do I get my shit on the thing? What do I do? Business wise. So that's Chords. That's one of the things we offer. We have this thing called Circles, which is 5-person weekly sessions, just really intimate, really into kind of like the mic, but it's not like you're there, you share your pieces. There's certain rules about feedback, and then you go do your piece again with said notes or whatever. But like, it's really, I mean, you'd have to experience to do it. It's just, it sounds like, oh, you guys just meet once a week and just share your art. Yeah, but it's, it's how we do. So there's circles, and it's only 5 people so that everybody gets it in. But if you're in circles, you can audit any other circle. Like you could just sit in on the Zoom and just like listen. But the participants can only be 5 people at a time. And then there's Puma, Palms Up Martial Arts, that Dre teaches. He's a black belt in Taekwondo. People come through. My kids, my parents, myself. Because he does it at my house, but he just inherited a dojo, actually. Do you know Dre Magic? He wasn't there either, but he's the magic guy. Was he there last time?
Oh, yeah,
he's a magician, yeah. So he's a black belt. So he does that, and then people come through and they just like, work out, learn some self-defense, because that's just really important right now. And then there's art class for creatives, which is a class that I teach that I only teach in 3-month sessions, and it's an intensive, and it's really... I can't really talk too much about it because the whole point of it is kind of the curriculum is based on an element of surprise, but I do think that it's more about your humanity than through art than it's all about art and improving that, but it's really about who you are.
That's really cool. And it sounds like you guys have like a lot of different classes. How do you manage to like?
Well, circles. So I really underwent a true inventory of myself and like my time and my bandwidth, and especially this year because it's been very crazy. Like at the beginning of this year, we were on tour for 2 months. Me and my brothers with the movie. Just all of the West Coast, all of the not all, but like up and down the West Coast, up and down the East Coast, LA, that's West Coast, and then we ended in Hawaii, and we still have to do the Midwest and the South, and then we're going to Europe for a tour, but that was for the first 2 months, and then I got out of that, and then I was immediately producing a movie. I got thrown into producing a movie, and that's what I did for the last month. And then that literally wrapped, and then I had the next day a pre-production meeting for another movie. So it gets difficult to, but this is the thing I say to my community, like to Palms Up. It's like, at this point, I've been doing this so long, and y'all been here, and there's enough of you that when people come in and out or new people come, it's already there. Y'all aren't here for me. Y'all are here for each other, So they've been really good about taking the baton and leading at least the mic portion. Chords is run by Fuzzy. Circles, by design, it's ran. I mean, there's like a person that holds the space, but by design, it's ran by the people. It's ran like it's for artists by artists. It just follows this certain parameters, just to keep it tight. And so that's chords, and then Dre runs Puma, and he'll he has access to he'll just go to my house whenever. And then art class for creatives, that's a tough one. People have been wanting to get in that class, but I have been so busy, and I'm not, and I don't. We've talked about me possibly passing the curriculum down, but it's just different. So that one I'm like a little. No, I really want to be there for that process for those artists, but also my schedule as of late has not allowed me a 3-month block that I could be there every week for 3 months. But so to answer your question, yeah, sometimes some things got to give, but I also have to design things that I don't have to run every time. And so I've been successful in that. Art class for creatives, not as much, because I got to figure out how I'm going to do that. But generally, I mean, yeah, it's everything is everything. Like the same way that I assess things to curate space, that's how I assess my time. Time management. When you got kids, it's a lot easier. Well, no, I shouldn't say easy, but it became much more clear as I get older, and especially with children. The things that I say yes to and things I say no to become very clear because of time management, and unapologetically and unjustifiably. Like, I don't need, like, yes, I can do this. No, I can't do that. and it's very quick, and I get to that answer so quick because it's like, can I do that? Do I have the bandwidth to actually do that? No. Or yes.
That's deep. That's interesting because I find it, like, I know me personally, I find myself spread thin sometimes with having a lot going on, so I could just imagine for you, because it sounds like you have like a million things going on. It's like, it's crazy. So out of those, everything that you do, what would you say is like, because I imagine you do all of it because you love all of it. You know what I mean? There's certain things that each of those individual, whether it be the classes, the mics, the movies, the plays, like everything calls to you in some fashion or some manner. And I'm kind of curious which one of those calls to you the most.
It's really, it's not that, well, that to me is not really the question. The question, or not the question. Like, that is a question. That's a valid question. But I think what I am really is a storyteller, is a communicator, and how that manifests itself. I don't know, in a poem, in a screenplay, in a B-side, in holding space, allowing other people to tell their stories and shape that throughout a night. I mean, so it's not like I think my favorite thing to do is storytell with my kids, like creating well, that it's actually, I love that your sound effect, creating well, that it's actually not just storytelling, it's a communication. Because you just tell a story all day and then no one's listening. Actually, like, land that fucking story. Like, I'm having a communication with you, and sometimes that has to do with me being on stage or in front of a camera or singing a song with a guitar, and sometimes it has to do with me producing it and shaping that and facilitating that, you know? So my favorite thing, like the paramount thing, is what I am communicating and making sure that bitch lands. And that doesn't mean that they're going to take it the way that I put it out there, but I know all my intentions of putting it out there, and hopefully that does something for somebody.
I see some motherfucking shit.
That's the one I was trying to play.
Oh man, that's super cool. I understand where you're getting at though. It's the love of the basic level of, or not basic, but like the kind of like the more general sense of storytelling allows you to do all these other things, because there's so many different ways to tell a story.
Yeah, and in that way, and so, you know, so for some people that's like their passion is, you know, vocals, which is dope. But I don't think I'm a singer. I sing. I play guitar. I'm not a guitar player, but I can strum a guitar. But that was never my intended goal. Like, my intended goal is just communication. Whatever I'm trying to communicate, you know, whatever I'm feeling or seeing or experiencing in the world, and being able to communicate that, you know, honorably for myself, for my family or something. If I've been commissioned to write poems and stuff for sure, like, you know, having those parameters and being like, yeah, what am I trying to communicate and how's that gonna come out?
That's cool.
I definitely think communication is a big part of my like existence as an artist, because like I went to school for that, but I didn't know for a while what to go to school for. I was in school for like business, or like around the time when he was in New York, and then eventually I switched to communications because I always knew I wanted to make music, and I was just like trying to figure out like what I could do to like do something to learn more, you know, something that could go into me wanting to be an artist. And then later on, like, I started taking certain communication classes, and like a lot of them were like deeper than I thought. I remember telling you, like, it was just like changing my perspective on like life, and like that's when I ran into Chris and like everyone else, and like kind of just like the deeper classes on like, I mean, I liked rhetoric, but I also liked, how do you say, like the ones about like interpersonal communication and like how we like really like as people, like, you know what I'm saying, like communicate, and how different, like all you're just talking about, like different, everything meaning one thing versus like the way you adding all the stuff on it. I think it helped me understand like you said, communicating messages and stories is like something I feel like I had a calling to do, you know what I mean? Like I feel like our perspectives are all like very unique, and I feel like mine, at least that was one that I was like, man, maybe if I could like communicate it in the right way or try to just like get it across, it'll be like, it's like you said, as long as you're like being yourself, it'll kind of be unique in that form. And like I realized that those are like the real like messages that spoke through, at least in all the different classes that I was in. It was just kind of like really how to like be yourself. And like I felt like I was like, wow, this arena is like easy to navigate through when you kind of hold it to that regard. Like sometimes people don't interpret it the same way, and then you got to work through like, you know, the way you communicate the different shit.
Mm-hmm. Uniqueness is an interesting concept. This idea of like that we're all stardust and we're all just atoms, and the chance of us being here is such a, in its own way, it's an anomaly. You know, that's these connections and what builds us just on an anatomy level, but then also like on a level of life product and environment and social class, financial class, and then just being here at this intersection right here at this podcast, and how unique that is. But then also, I mean, one of the lines at the end of one of my poems is like, 'cause you are unique like everyone else. So there's this everythingness about being unique, you know, and just like balancing that knowingness, or at least for me and my life path of like this knowingness and awareness of who I am, and honing in on my basic ass superpowers, but like everyone has them too, you know, their own, and however, and whatever combination of DNA and atoms and stardust and shit that made them, you know, but everybody's unique like everyone else. And how can, and everybody's weird, like everyone's weird, they got their weird shit. So how do you take that? And a lot of what I do, like as a producer or curator space, is like identify that in which is so magic about that and so unique about it, and then how do I frame that up? How do I frame that up in a B-side? How do I frame that up in a list? And that's what, well, going back to what we're talking about, like reading the room in context. If you're in a space and you're going up and there's all these other people going up and you just have one piece, or you have your set and it's like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. How do you frame yourself up good? You know, like figuring that out. Like, what's that frame up? Like, what's, first of all, knowing yourself and identifying that uniqueness and that weirdness and those idiosyncrasies and those parts about you, and honoring them and celebrating them. And then like, oh, how do I frame that up? And those painful parts of you too, that you want, if you want to expose those in those moments of performance. But yeah, how do you frame all that up?
Nah, that hits home.
It really does. It's really beautiful to hear that. And I want to ask you, like, within that, what would you say is like the most unique experience you've had? Because I know, granted, that's hard to say, because we go into saying like everything is unique, you know, and because we all are individuals, and like every moment is a beautiful moment. But like, what was in doing like the B-sides, was there ever a moment that was just like, I can't believe like this came together in this way, you know?
I mean, there's probably plenty, but off the top of my head, because, you know, I'm not going to sit here and think for like an hour. Like, let me really think about that. And that wouldn't even be enough time to really go through the entire Rolodex of memories and be like, what is the most unique B-side ever? But not most recently, but my daughter, she's 9 now, she's 8. This was before she started guitar lessons, and she just liked to sing. You know, she loves to sing and express herself, and she's I'm not gonna underplay her spirit. She's actually, there's something about her. There's something about her, and I know I'm a mom, and like, oh, she's having her mom moment. No, there's something about this one. So she goes up there. And do you guys know Bethany? was one of Ariel's friends too. Yes, Bethany. Okay, so Bethany would go up there and she would read this story called Bare Bones, and like every week she would read like a little bit of it, right? So it's like a continuous, like she goes, you know, last week on Bare Bones, and then she'd read. Well, Rory was inspired by this, and she wrote her own story, right? And then she shares it with her class, and then her teacher's like, that's so great. Everybody start writing their story. So she inspired everybody else to write stories. Her story is about the Golden Legend. So she comes to the mic one day and she's like, Mom, I don't want to sing tonight. I want to read my story on the Golden Legend. And I'm like, all right, cool. I mean, because I want her to like get it in and practice and say it in front of people, whatever. And I'm like, all right, cool. Read your story about the Golden Legend. She goes up there, she reads her story about the Golden Legend, and it's like a paragraph. So she has like plenty of time left. And I'm like, because she already wrote 5 chapters, but she's like, but that was chapter 1. Come back next week for chapter 2. And I was like, okay, wait, you know, all right, well, since you're up here, like, just, you got some time, like, get it in, you know, something. And she's like, I don't have anything. Like, just, don't tell me that. Just get it in, you know, do something. You're up there, you got time. And that was a night that I happened to, like, put people up, like, 3 or 4 at a time, just to be on stage and just like support, you know. They weren't performing together. That's just how I like the group. I was like, these 3 people come up on stage right now, and then they just popped up. So House Cat, which is one of our girls in the community, she's a DJ and she does music and she plays a bunch of shit. She just hops on the keys. She's like, oh, I'm just gonna hop on the keys, and she starts playing this shit, right, kind of up tempo shit. And Rory's like, I don't know what to do. And they're like, sing about the Golden Legend. Just go. Yo, this girl opened her mouth, and I was like, what is happening right now? It was like fast. It was freestyled. It made sense. She was saying like deep things. She was referring to the story. She was telling a story. She knew the verse. She knew when it came to the chorus. She, you know, had like... She heightened the second verse. She went into a bridge. She went back to the chorus. She went on to an outro. It was just like, I don't know. I was like, your brain is doing something else. That's pretty. And that wasn't, I mean, it was kind of a mini B-side because I kind of just made her do it on the spot. But when it's moments like that, when you give people this opportunity to even surprise themselves, that's the closest thing to magic that I've seen in my life. And we have a magician in our camp, which is always a beautiful thing too. But that to me is like, that's the real magic, when we exceed our own expectation that we didn't even know we had an expectation. We just ask something randomly and then we can do it. When we do it and rise up to that challenge, like, this is growth. This is how we expand our beingness and our abilities and our superpowers.
That's really cool.
This definitely. Do you see yourself like ever like making music like with your daughter when she gets older? Like,
yeah, of course. I mean, we do we mess around all the time. Yeah, yes,
I feel
absolutely.
I feel like that'd be like a dream, you know?
Really
absolutely, cool. Yeah.
So, in storytelling, what is the story that you want to tell with the play opening this weekend?
The play, oh, jeez.
Wow, music.
The play. I'm telling a couple of different stories in the play. The play is called Burn's Echo, and actually, I'm gonna, ooh boy, I'm gonna read you this thing.
Ooh.
We got another one for real.
This is me sick. I'm ready.
This is I'm gonna read it to you and then I'm gonna explain it to you. But when I sat down, so there's this festival that happens every year called the LA Get Down Festival. in LA, and it's a celebration of hip hop and spoken word. And I've been involved in it since its beginning, like for many years, whether I was putting up work or was a featured something or a new play or a panel guest, I don't know, or moderating a panel or teaching a workshop. This year or last year, they commissioned me actually to write a new play. And we had like a night in last year's festival, just like introducing ourselves or whatever, talking about whatever. And then we're supposed to have it this year, which is what I'll be doing. But also this year I was, I'm the festival director of the whole thing with my boy Shihan, who I'm actually doing this other movie with, unrelated. So again, everything is everything. I mean, side note on it, it's like when you build your life and your people, it doesn't matter if we're doing poetry or this poetry festival thing, or I'm doing this, or now we're gonna be doing this like Hollywood indie movie. Like, find your people, the people that you want to roll with and that you're gonna ride with, you know. And sometimes some people are only not good. I don't want to say the word good, but meant for a certain lane, because that's just where their skill set is. But when you can find those people, like, everything is everything, man. When you find those creators. So this, when I sat down to write this, I hadn't written anything, but I would go to like a couple of the meetings because we met once a month, and I was like, shit, my schedule's getting so crazy I can't even meet once a month. And they're like, oh yeah, so the deadline is, and I was like, oh my God. I just locked myself in a hotel room one night or for over a weekend, and I was like, I just got to get this in. Like, I got to write this. I said that I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. So this is what I wrote to get into. This is actually not in the play. This was just like me sitting down, like, what am I going to write? So this is what came out. This one's for the brown face, the yellow face, the slanted eyes, the almond ones. The ones that are expected to assimilate, the ones expected to nurse your wounds, send Balak Bayans back home, expected to be your shadow, do your math, fulfill your fetish, be your model minority. The ones you call Oriental, the ones you mistake for Japanese, Korean, Mexican, black, white, the ones you assume know Kung Fu, the ones you ask, where are you from, the one you greet with a Kumusta, assuming they know Tagalog, looking down at them because they don't, looking down at them because they do, and they're foreign. The ones expected to hold their own, work harder but be shorter, the food that makes you cultured, that matures your palate, that cheap hole in the wall when you're eating on a budget. This one's for the roles they didn't get, the roles they had to play in classes they'd never actually be cast in real life. This is for them to play and feel and human in their skin. This is a statement without stating it in dialogue or topic or subject. This is just a love story between two people who were lucky enough to find each other, then lose each other, only to look for one another in other relationships, hence just two actors, lovers, just two actors, then embodying each other's consecutive lovers, just two actors, only to find themselves in the end. That was my little writing exercise, and then I got into the play. So I say all that because that's how I got into it, but ultimately, if this play goes, I actually want it to be anybody. Like, I wrote it like, oh, I'm gonna cast two Filipinos. Because I did have this idea of, like, it came from this idea that so many of us come to the city to be actors or something, and they never, especially Asians, like, you never get a chance to play the roles that you fucking studied for because you look the way that you do. You're not going to play the leading man. So in part I wrote it for that, but at the end of the day, like, I see it cast like every which way, even because I kind of picked kind of androgynous names, like even in LGBTQ, like, mix it, like any two people can play these roles. And for the actor, what a fun thing and the director, what a fun thing to play with, that you get to play every role. So does that make sense what I said? Like, so if you and I were together, but then we broke up, and then I was with him, well, you would just play him, but you would know because I would project a picture of him on the back wall. But then on an artist actor level, what a fun place to play at, that you can play multiple roles, right? And go through this story and this relationship. And likewise for you, like, you're now dating Sharon, I don't know, but I would play Sharon. But on a story level, why that is because when we fall in love, I mean, whether you ever have a relationship with that person or you did have a long relationship with that person, but when you fall in love and that doesn't happen, and this is a blanket statement, this isn't true for everyone, but one has a tendency to then look for that person in other lovers, like just really find and always kind of measure them up to this person that they really, really love. Hence why it's the same actor, because that's who that person sees the whole time until at the end, you know, there's some sort of resolve sort of thing.
That's awesome.
So it's called Burn's Echo because it's Bernie and Echo.
I feel like watching that would be such a like trip. Like, you know what I mean? Because you'd see the same person.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, oh, I get why it's the same person. Like they see this person. And
How long is the play running for?
No, tonight or
Just that night?
tomorrow. It's just a kind of like a presentation. It's a presentation, but it's like a workshop. Like it's not a workshop, but you know, it's in process. It's in process. So like, there's like going to be there's an audience, and they're going to ask questions and have a little feedback, and yeah, it's just part of the process or part of this process. Usually, I'll just write some shit and I'll put it up, but I agreed to be part of this thing that they wanted to do at the theater, so I was like, okay, so I'm gonna put up the play tomorrow. And the other thing about this play, because it's part of the hip hop and spoken word festival, so part of the requirements is that it has to involve hip hop and or spoken word. So then that's a whole thing, because it's like, it is a play, but then it's not a musical, but there's music in it, and there's singing and poetry, and yeah, just like infusing all of those things, and it's gonna be interesting. I'm a bit nervous about it, but I get like that, you know. It's just because it's any piece of work. Well, for me, I actually was just talking to an artist recently who's like super dope actor and singer, but he was saying like at this he pretty much just dials it in, because he can sing like this heartbreaking song or this love song, but you know, he's not really attached to it. I was like, that's so crazy, because you're so good, and that's his choice. I mean, and that's dope. And maybe I don't know, I don't know why he whatever he might not be allowing himself to feel, maybe he doesn't feel the need to. But as an artist, whenever I create something, I'm like, it's like your little nakedness. It's like, I'm naked.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I have the discussion with other artists too, like where it's like sometimes they don't want to be that raw, like while they're getting something off, because it's like I'm performing, so it's like I have to kind of be like on top of it in a sense. But I feel like for me sometimes it's like that's when I'm most like at unhinged, like
Vulnerable.
Yeah, like
vulnerable, super vulnerable. I mean, we just did the Gold Standard, which was part of the LA Get Down, a night to celebrate AAPI voices, and I curated this whole night with musicians and poets, and it was a very fluid night. But then in the middle, like I grabbed my guitar and I started playing, and I did this piece, and it's like a song and a poem, and my hand like so much was. And I don't think I was nervous. I'm not sure what it was, but what happened. But then it kind of froze up. So it was like, okay, well, I can't really, it's not happening. But then taking whatever that energy is and just pushing it outward, it's just a process that you go through. And then, you know, I stopped playing for a second and I just went off and sang a cappella and then did the thing. And, you know, you just gotta just in those moments, just find your way. That's what B-sides is too. It's like, just find your way. I had someone on the lineup that I was just that lives in San Diego, and I've seen him at slams that I've been asked to host a lot of things, and he's always wanted to work with me, and I was like, yo, we're about to do this thing, like come through. So he did his set, and he actually is not used to doing. He hasn't come to Palms Up Academy, and he's not used to doing poetry with music, so he opted, plus he couldn't go to the whatever rehearsal they were holding, so he opted not to have the poetry with his music. That's cool. Like, we'll put you like in the middle, it'll be like a break. But then of course I do a B-sides at the end of this like live show, like this show. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yo, just stand there. If anything, just stand there. And it took him a while to like participate, but he was participating already just by being there. I think he was just like being present. But it happens for people when it happens for people, and just allowing that to just be what it is, even if you're on stage and you freeze, like, and then just like leaning into it and making it an intentional thing. So the audience doesn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
The audience is uncomfortable when you're uncomfortable.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Definitely. Like, if you just start like laughing and having a good time, like, they'll generally just start laughing and having a good time. It's kind of like a monkey see, monkey do thing in that regard, I guess. Like, it gives off, you get back what you give off up there.
Yeah.
So it's like you come up there and you kind of just like feel good about yourself. I feel like generally like everyone else will feel good about it, because like it just shows. I feel like we had someone on here talking about like comedy before, like when Rhythm was on here. No, it was like a different person. Like when Rhythm was on here, and then that was like one of my biggest questions, and like on like how does you do it, and like because I was thinking like I've never done that, but I would try it at some point. And he was saying that that's the biggest thing he notices is just like people have to be okay with like bombing. Like it's just visible, like when they like are worried about like if they're gonna do bad. Like he said you could just see it already, like versus like if you're not really worried about it, like people often don't really notice it too much. Oh, what's up? It was like a hummingbird about the bird.
That's true though. It is true. People don't know you're nervous, or actually not. People know you're nervous without you like getting it off, like just like body language.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's almost like you may not notice like if you made a mistake, if you kind of came in like feeling like you just feel like, you know what I mean, like you weren't gonna.
But also like what you're saying about like being able to use those moments and kind of like improvise it into something intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not like realizing that, kind of just like identifying like, well, what's going on with you right now? There must be a lot of emotion coming up on you right now, but these people, what does that mean for these people? Like these people, they're actually on my side. Like they're not my enemy. Well, I'm not afraid of them. I'm afraid of what's going on or unless you are afraid of them. But then it's a trick in your mind of going, well, they came here to see something. There's a lot of different processes that happen in moments like that. But you just, for me, like my daughter will get stage fright. She's like, well, what do I do? I'm like, well, one, you just keep doing it. And you're always going to be scared. And like, but the first thing you do is like act like you're not. You can do that, And then when you act like you're not, then that puts you in a different space. But if you still are, then take them on the ride with you. Then bring them with you. You're on the same journey. It's when you make this divide that it's like you against the audience. Why make that choice? Why don't you make the choice of, and not a whole disclaimer, like don't talk their fucking ears out about how nervous you are or something. Like just take all that energy and just and go in, and they'll go with you because that's where they're there.
That's cool. That's beautiful. I guess one other thing I wanted to touch on was the movie that you're going to be working on or worked on.
The movie, yes. The Fabulous Filipino Brothers.
Yeah. Are those the same brothers that you had a falling out with earlier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are my brothers. Those are my real brothers. Did you watch the movie? Have you seen the movie?
I haven't yet.
If you watch the movie, those are my real brothers, and my parents are in it, and they play the parents. Like,
I'm gonna go home and watch this now. This is like, I didn't know this is a movie, but I think I heard you mention it. I didn't know it was about you.
See, I heard you talk about the movie. I didn't know it was out. I thought you were just doing like pre.
Oh
tour,
no, yeah,
like
it's out.
It's
streamed. It was released in Asia, Netflix Asia, in like November of last year, but we couldn't really promote it because because we weren't supposed to. But it was like number 3 on the charts for a while in Netflix Asia, which was dope. And then we released it here on like video on demand. It's still video on demand on like all platforms, I think, February 8th. But yeah, the tour is, I mean, there's so much about that movie. There's so many elements that we could talk about in that movie, but if you knew my family and the journey, like from the content of the stories that we decided to tell in it, to the making of it, to the writing of it, and then becoming a co-writer on it, and the relationship with my brothers, and in just doing that, but then also the relationship with my brothers in the movie is like, it's very meta. The whole thing's very meta, but it's not like a sci-fi or anything. Like, it's nothing crazy like that. But then also like just a tour and like the things that we do at Palms Up Academy. We get there, we set up lights. I've been doing this for years and doing different shows and curating different shows and different events. And then we go on tour because this is an indie movie. Like, this is not like, oh, we got like crazy Hollywood movie money and we did like, no, we self-funded that tour, like, and nobody does that. Like, and we like kicked it back. Like, we were like back in the day, like, you know, you're selling, well, I don't know if you guys are younger, but you know, slanging CDs in the back of your trunk is sort of like 90s style. Like, I'm trying to get my music out there. Like, let's go on tour. And we just got in a car and we talked to some folks and, you know, coordinated different places that we could go and promoted ourselves. I mean, there's you don't see our movie on a billboard. Like, we had to do it. It was like, seriously, like all the stuff that I do at Palms Up Academy and when I, you know, in bands and we were touring, like all of that informed, because everything is everything, right? Everything you do informed us doing this really non-traditional tour. Like, nobody's just like doing that for themselves, because it's usually funded by a movie and there's PR and there's all these other a studio, rather, funded by a studio. But yeah, so we that was and continues to be a crazy experience of being able to see you know, more of the country, but also in the movie itself and meeting with these audiences and folks, Filipino, white, black, everything in between, feeling seen in their own life and in their own families. And how cool that is, because this is not about a perfect family, because Asians are not a monolith. We didn't write a story about the most excellent Olympic gold medalist who won swimming in I don't even know. I'm about to say some bad, like, that's no fact. It's just about a family, and because it's just about an American family who happen to be Filipino, and it's so cool to hear people being able to see that and accept that and then internalize that for themselves and enjoy a movie and be entertained by this movie. Because if you think about it, on the flip side of that, that's what we've been. I've seen myself in all the movies that I've seen in my life. I've been the hero, I've been the girl next door, I've been the heartbroken girl, I've been the superhero girl, and they were mostly all white. So if I can see myself in white folks' movies, why can't you see yourself in a movie with Filipino people? And if we were able to accomplish that in our small little way, that's dope. You know?
That's really dope. Man, that's really cool. I'm definitely going to check this movie out because I'm really interested in seeing this play out.
That's interesting. Like, I was curious to know how, like, how you felt about, like, the whole process, and what was, like, one thing you, like learned, I guess, from going, like, your endeavor in the independent film, like, world, because I feel like I think about that a lot. Like we watch a lot of like docs and like stuff of people like making, you know what I mean, of their life, and like you've actually seen like the other side of that, like where it's like it is stuff from your experience. Do you have to like detach from it to make it, like, you know what I mean, because it's like you're making it into something else? Or is it like something where it's like you have to be like, no, like I have to be there for every, like I wanted this to be this way, this to be that way, like
And there's so many. That's such a long answer, but yes and no. Like, yeah, you gotta be appropriate, and not because you have to be appropriate and you have to follow the rules. Like, you gotta identify your goal in every project that you do, whether that's and to make a movie, it's a minor miracle.
right?
You're coordinating so many things, so many people. Like, just like I'm producing a movie right now, and I'm trying to explain to these fools, like, yo, you wrote a script, and it's all right because but like there were some formatting issues. But the point of the formatting issues is like, because I don't think you're realizing like every single one of these things that you wrote. So like, for example, was like I don't know, the big bad wolf is walking. And he's walking up a walkway, and he knocks on the door, and it's, you know, the three little piggies' mom, and the mom hears the knock, and she tells the kid, shh, shh. Yes. And then you open the door. Okay, so in writing, that's all like, you know, one paragraph, depending on how, whatever the vibe, one paragraph, maybe a couple paragraphs, depending on how detailed you want it. And filming that, in your mind's eye, you see that. But the trick of a film is that the camera has to capture what your mind's eye is seeing. And if you don't have the funds to get all the shots, and what I mean by that is, well, okay, so he's walking. So you want a shot of his feet, but then you want that wide of him actually, the wide of like the house that he's walking to for context and him walking. And then you might want to get coverage this way, what his face is doing as he's walking up, because you want to know like what's happening, like, oh, he's hungry, you know, and then he actually knocks. How important is that knock? Do you want a close up on that knock? Is it a mid-wide? You knock. Then it's the mom. Then you got to flip. That's a whole other location sometimes where it's like the mom's like, shh, kids. Let alone, what are the kids doing? And are they going to be able to do that for 3 or 4 takes, the same thing? Because when you edit this later, it has to have continuity. So if one of the kids jumps off the couch onto the other kid, and the other kid spills milk on this person, on the other kid, you got to do that, be able to do that same choreography 4 times for continuity if you're going to use it for the movie. You also need a prop person to pour them more milk. You also need multiple changes of clothing so that every time you do that take, that kid is drenched in milk again. And then with everything that I'm telling you, and then you answer the door, it's a different camera setup. And every camera setup takes time to set up. So, and I just like break that down. It's really boring what I just broke down to you, but that's what it takes to just do that segment of that movie. If that's the way that you're shooting, if you want that coverage, like that, what you see in like a regular movie, like, oh yeah, you don't think about it when you're watching it, like, oh yeah, so Tom Cruise is walking here and the Brad Pitt and whatever, and then they're doing this heist, and you know, but that's what the camera sees. They set that shit up. There's like 40 people behind them, like for each angle, for each place, like, so when you identify the goal, then you start really gauging your emotionality on the personalness of whatever you're feeling. Because for like the Fabulous Filipino Brothers, that's not the Fabulous Filipino Family. That's called the Fabulous Filipino Brothers. And if I mentioned earlier, I was consistently left out of their groupings as brothers. And then here they set out to make a movie. And but I mean, I've done music all along. They've done music all along, the different forms. But their group was always just them. They didn't include me in that. And then then they were 13, 6, or 7.5. Then they were the Fly Brown Dragons. Then they were the Brown Boys, and then they were the Basco brothers. And then I sang on a track or whatever. But I've always had to do my own thing. So then the Fabulous Filipino, and actually initially I wasn't even going to be in it because they wrote it for themselves. But then they realized, oh, we probably need like a female voice. Like, probably, you know. And then I wasn't actually gonna. Well, I don't want to spoil anything. So yeah, of course there's like feelings, but then that's part of your own personal growth, and like how much are you how much are you attached to that narrative? When are you gonna let that narrative go? And regardless of whether or not they've ever seen me, have I seen myself? And if I have seen myself, why do I keep punishing myself? Like, I think I'm a pretty cool person. You know what I mean? So, so then why do I keep marrying myself? Then that's on me for marrying myself to that narrative. But that's all work that I have to do before we ever get on set. And that's work that, you know, and during. There were times during our Q&As going across this country where like literally, and I love my family is everything to me. And I take all the ups and downs, but like there's literally multiple moments when we're in Q&As with this audience and my brother's narrative is just like, yeah, well, me and the brothers were growing up. Yeah, me and the brothers have seen every performance we've ever done. Yeah, so when me and the brothers used to, and I'm like standing right there. And inevitably, because of the way the story's set up, you know, someone in the audience is like, well, what about you? Like, what do you think of? As a woman and as a and I answered it different every time. But one day I was like, yeah, you know, everything that Dante just said, like he was performing in the Bay, he was a break dancer, came out here, became an actor, became a poet, became a writer, and then a director and an author and a producer. I've done all those things too, like sometimes before him, but that's for me to do because that's my art and that's my work and that doesn't mean that I don't want visibility, and that doesn't mean that, but I didn't do it for that, and he didn't do it for that either, and that's not to negate his journey, but you see how he doesn't see me, and that's okay because that's his shared experience of his life. That's not my business. My business is what my life is and what's my shared experience, and I actually will talk about my brothers and have shared experiences with them regardless of whether or not they see me in that memory or whatever it is, you know. But that's for me. And then to find my people, and hence Palms Up Academy or Armike or whatever iteration it is, and the people that I fucks with, and this tour actually brought me and my brothers even closer together. We're always close, but in that other way, and then we got even closer. So it's all like going back to what I said earlier about life, and the longer that I live, we have these eras of life, and what calls to me all the time is just patience. Like, just patience.
Yeah,
just
like
keep
life
doing
is
your thing.
long. You know, like life is long, if you will, and like maybe like your movie is still getting written like right now. You know what I'm saying? Like the Lady B movie, like you said, like those parts in it, like you might want to put those parts in it too. Like,
yeah, faux show. Life is. Then again, here's the balance, right? With the uniqueness, but then everybody's unique. Life is long, but also it can end tomorrow. Yeah. So, or today, I could go out. I mean, God forbid, like that. Hopefully, that doesn't happen. But so then there's this thing about like patience, but not lamenting in that patience. Trusting. It's really about trusting the process. Knowing that if I did die today or tomorrow, and I'm not everywhere that I will be in a year or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, of course I'm not, because we're not there yet. But have I lived my life, and in this present moment, do I know when I wake up in the morning what my name is? Can I look at myself in the mirror and recognize that person and say their name? When I go to bed at night, do I know who my people are? Like who my ride or dies are? And that also evolves over time, switches out. Yeah, I do. And I would be, of course I don't want to die. I got 2 kids. Like I think they want me around. But the process in which we move through this world is like so imperative. It's not, Everybody's got baggage. Everybody's got their shit. Young, old, my daughter got the biggest chip on her fucking shoulder. She was just born that way. That's just, she's got that rage in her. Cool. Everybody has their baggage. It's the grace in which you travel with that suitcase. And what you're doing with that suitcase, because when you open it up, is that shit laundered? Or did you just throw shit in there and it's a mess? That's your work. You got to like figure that out. Like, yo, do I need this anymore? Do I need this anymore? I should probably fold this. Should I iron it? You know what I mean? Then we start talking about relationships and like, cause everybody has their baggage, but then people, that's a different thing. Relationships are special, but you'd hope that yes, everyone has their baggage, but you want them to have their thing. All these production people are calling me. Take care of some of their shit.
It's good to be purposeful with your patience. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause it's good to be
Very much so. I think I kind of want to transition to the life cycle.
Affirmations,
Because I don't want to make you stay too late because I know you got to head out of here soon. But within that, I guess I can start off because what you were just talking about is a lot of like what I've been reflecting on, and especially like yesterday. I was a part of the fact that we can just go at any moment. You know what I mean? We can die today in a couple hours, and you never know when the last time is that you might see somebody. And it's scary in a sense because like, I don't know. I feel like when I was younger, I didn't really think too much on that. Like, I feel like I was just kind of like, I always figured like on the patience tip of like, I'll always see them again at some point. But then you just never know, because sometimes you just say bye or you don't say anything, and then that's the last time you see them. And it's a lot about been reflecting on like how I want to and this is something that I've been kind of contemplating for the past, like I say, like 2 years, is trying to like implement that into partially of like when I see someone, or I mean like when I leave a situation, to try to be like leave as good of like as I can of being like a goodbye or something, right? And it's hard because like I've gotten lazy with it. Life distracts me, and like now I have this like upcoming trip coming up, and I don't know, it just really hit me. I was just like, because life has never gone the way I planned it. Never has. Every time I've like tried to like make like a full plan for it, I somehow have to like maneuver and improvise on it and kind of keep going in some way. And like with that mindset, it's like I don't know what's gonna happen like forever, but like I don't know, it's just this one thing that like with me kind of going and traveling like across the world, and like I don't know, leaving all the friends and family that I have here on this side of the world, it's kind of like it's hard, and you never know if it'll be the last time you see them. And that's what really like, I don't know, it tugs at my heartstrings, and it's definitely something that's like, honestly, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, just because like it's hard, you know. You never really want to say bye to someone, you know. You never really want to go, but it's part of life, I guess. And you just have to kind of like, the way I'm trying to affirm through it is, since it is part of life, is to just try to make them the best of the moments that you have with people. And yeah, that's just a large part of like where my head's been at recently with that.
You bring up two things in listening to you speak on it. One, mortality, and two, plans, which sometimes can go hand in hand. But for me, when I think of those things, I start with the latter, like plans. Yo, got 2 kids with 2 different, they're baby daddies, but 2 different, I call them sperm donors because they're like completely absent. And been completely absent. Did I plan that? No, of course. Like, that's not the plan. That was not any part of the plan. But when you get to a place of acceptance of whatever it is, because you can't control everybody else. You can't control when there's moving components and other people and other people's life choices, and health choices and financial choices. Like it just, this is a very unique moment and intersection to be here. It took so much for us to deliver us into this moment. So it takes a lot for something to happen. But when I look at my kids and I think about plans, the plan isn't for Aurora to become a superstar. And I'm going to do everything that I can. I'm going to get her a producer. I'm going to get her this. She's going to learn how to play guitar. I'm going to get her vocal lessons. The plan is never that. The plan is not for me to be a big star or a big producer or even a holder of space. The plan is to be at peace with myself. And what can I do? What are the things that I can do to be at peace with myself and surround myself with people that also support that and protect my peace as I would protect their peace. And in doing that, not even think about, I need to appreciate, in getting clear with like what I want, what the ultimate plan is, then I don't even have to think about how I treat them in the moment. That's by default, because I already love and respect and honor you because I chose you to be my life and you chose me to be in your life. And so we're going to get it in and have this moment because I'm on a path right now and a purpose to find peace in my world and to find peace in my life and to protect that peace. And I fucks with you because you do that too. You know what I'm saying? So, and not all of them too, of course, because there's so many different like personalities, but what is it, what beyond the plan, beyond the tangible plan, beyond the plan that leads to notoriety or accolades, what is the plan? The plan is center. The plan is peace. The plan is fulfillment. So then what are the action steps? Yeah, and that will constantly move and navigate and change because you can't control anyone. And then on this topic of like, not even my kids, and I'm their leader, but of course they're their own people. So I got to be accepting of that, you know? And then mortality, I have like so I'm a single mom of 2. We're building a house on my property right now for me and my kids. And, you know, me and my parents, we take care of each other. I'm their primary caretakers. They're my primary babysitters. Like, we maintain the house together. They're in the 3rd act of their life. And knowing that it's a hard one, you know, it's a hard one to wrap my head around how much I rely on them, not just logistically, but yes, they're part of we're part of each other's tapestry logistically daily. But how much I love them so much and respect them. And they're not perfect, you know, I get frustrated with them. Like all the things, they're everything. They're why we're here. They are the risks that they are the ones that change our trajectory. That they're the ones who made us, you know? So it's like this, how do you say, I don't know. I think I don't know. I'd be a wreck. When I was around your age, when I was 27, I had a girlfriend who, like, in New York, I had a lot of friends, but like, there was only one girl that was really just like my friend. I mean, she was also friends with my boyfriend, but she like would seek me out. She wanted to kick it with me. She worked on like, we worked together in the East Village in Alphabet City, but then, whatever, something happened, whatever. She ended up in the West Village, but she would come after work to come kick it with me. And I just thought it was so strange because at that time I was like, why does this girl want to kick it with me so much? Like, that's so weird. I didn't understand it, but we did. And anyways, cut to, I moved back to LA, and she was one of the first cases of HPV, which then became cancer. And I was going to go visit her, but then a friend of ours had just come back from the holidays and said, oh yeah. I said, how was Thanksgiving? She's like, oh, it's great, considering Heather only has like 3 months to live. And I was like, what? I thought that's shit. So long story short, I ended up flying out like that week. And then I watched her die over the next 3 days. I was just, at her bedside, and I was young and she was young, and I mean, I grew up in the neighborhood, so things have happened and we've lost people, but that was the first time that I really like sat beside somebody and just like watched the life go out of them, who was really my age and really like a lot of share. Like it was just such, it's so much there's so much that happens in those moments, and there's so much life, and then no life, but then there is some sort of thing floating around, and it's and since then, you know, losing people, yeah, I don't have the answer for that. Me and my brother, I mean, not that you were asking, I guess I'm saying I see you, like it's hard dealing with that, but I think it goes back to the planning thing of like, well, shifting, because a miracle is really just a shift in perception, right? So shifting those plans to not these tangible things or things that, you know, like even if like my plan is like I want to build a house in the back of my and on my property. I mean, that is happening, but why am I really doing that? Like I think it makes my mom happy. It makes my mom happy that we're building something together. So if we don't get to build that, then we'll build something else together. It doesn't even matter what it is. A mural in the house, I have no idea. You know what I mean? Because like, what's the true purpose for anything that we do, right? And that should be the plan. And if that's the plan, then of course everything's going to shift all the time. Then we'll be better about accepting that, oh, it's shifting again. It's moving again. And that's a movie all day long. What's the plan? We need to make the movie. And everything goes wrong. That's why you got to do pre-production. Pre-production doesn't mean it's going as planned. Pre-production, a lot of producing is what's everything that can go wrong. Let's prepare for that. You know what I mean? So just being in acceptance that we got to be malleable, but what stays steadfast and real is, you know, for me, protecting my peace.
It's really
true.
deep, like affirmation.
It's very deep.
And I see how it relates to yours too, like, you know what I'm saying, in the sense of just like the plan being like adjusting the plan and refocusing the plan, and then that kind of the changes following that. Because if you keep that, like you said, you keep that as the plan, like reaching your peace, like it'll naturally change, but it'll always kind of keep you on the right path. And I feel like that's something I've been reflecting on recently. It's kind of been like refocusing for me on like what it is that, how do you say, like that intersection of like business and music, I feel like was like pulling at me, and like which kind of like the plan, if you will. But I feel like one thing that I had to refocus within that was like kind of what is, like you said, like what is your goal out of this. And I think my calling out of it has always been like say if when I'm making something, like I could make something when I'm in the studio or trying to make some music that will get somebody to be like, oh, they'll like this for how like successful it will be and how good it sounds. But I feel like I've been having that fight between being like forgetting that like when I go in or when I'm trying to make music, like it's about I ask my question to myself. It's like, I wonder sometimes, I feel like with the other people I'm making music, I have to ask, like, do you ever make something with the intention of like trying to make somebody like cry or like feel, or like I feel like that's like that vulnerableness is where I forget sometimes, is where like I see the plan. You know what I'm saying? Like for me or whatever, like my plan, I feel like is to resonate with people on that level, whether it's like successful or not. It's like to make that kind of connection with somebody through what I'm expressing.
I mean, yeah, you bring up some interesting points too, because the business of art is totally different than our right? So like the creation of it.
And sometimes I think about that, and like I'll get sucked into the other side of it because I have to learn about it. But then I'll get lost in the idea of what maybe like my thing is. You know what I mean? Because then I feel like sometimes you could get lost in what your thing is, but then when I refocus it back to that, I start to find my legs in the other areas of it as well. You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost like I lose my focus.
I'll pose a question for y'all then. Do you think, based on these things, in this age right now, and y'all are in it because y'all are young and you're doing the music and you're doing the things, and it's a social media game, it's like getting the numbers, it's the streaming, it's figuring that out, your ASCAP and all that shit, like everything, right? And you have to manage that, right? So I have my girlfriend, she's my friend, she's a music exec at a big spot, and we're talking about it, and she just like does A&R, and she's like, yo, here's the thing, dude. Like back in the day, it was my job to find people, to find artists. That's what A&R does, right? And then like support them, right? And she's like, but these days, because social media is like so oversaturated and so much, it sucks, but it's the artist's job to make noise loud enough that I see them. I can't just go find them because this is the game now, right? And I was like, that's wild. I said, well, do you think that, and I posed this question to y'all, someone like James Brown, Bob Dylan, Prince, I don't know, Etta James, any of these kind of legendary, let's stay with music, legendary figures would survive and be seen in the social media age? And really consider that, because that means that all that time that they spent pontificating on world issues and changing the world with their music, changing the game with their music, sitting in rooms by themselves, getting really excellent at whatever they're doing, guitar, music, composing, is really divvied up between like being on their phone and posting content.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like how much of their time then was taken, because aside from the A&R, right?
I'm getting to how like raw, or like how much would they make us feel, is like if they're infected by all of this other stuff that we're infected by.
How does their artistry change?
Yeah.
Because there's so much time. And also, I mean, not just the A&R thing, but because back then you had people that would go to the festivals or go to the thing, like they would find you, well, like an A&R, and then they would set up a studio and they would distribute and they would do all these things. But the modern day artist has to do all this shit themselves for what? Sometimes like 20 likes. Like you're like, oh fuck, like that was a lot of work to do that, and then just keep pressing and doing that. But that's a lot of not just work, it's like time away from the creative in which you're trying to hone, right? So that's like, yeah. So what
and possibly time away from like what could cultivate those moments that make people cry. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I'm starting to realize, that like it's a push and pull with that. Like it takes away some time from those moments that like where you start to think like, damn, this is something real, that like if I express this, someone else probably is going through this. Like, you know, you don't get to spend as many times with those moments when you're like invested in all the other shit.
No, that's some real shit. And I think a big part of it is like the team aspect with it, because
if you have a team,
because like that was what I was gonna get with it, because I feel like back in the day, I feel like they actually had less of a team, and that's where the A&R kind of went in and supplied the rest of the team. But now we're left to kind of, since they don't have that role, we're supposed to be the whole team.
Yes.
Beforehand.
But also, okay, so then, sorry. Okay, so I'm on a different note, but the same, like a harmony. It seems off, but you guys just gotta vibe with me. So COVID, right? I have kids, and people, when it first started, it's like, oh my God, like kids, especially kids who are already antisocial, what is this gonna do to them? Or it's just any kids, like, oh, what are we teaching our kids now? They gotta wear masks, now they can't go to school, now they can't do all these things, and like they can't play outside, and it's gonna do all these things to them, right? True, but also when you really think about it, kids are more resilient than us. Like when I teach my kids something, I discipline them or I tell them the rules, then that's just the rule. And they just accept it because they're children, because that's the world. I am creating the world for them. So when this happens, and if I pass on this whole COVID idea and scare the shit out of them, then that's what they're going to get. If I just tell them, you got to wear a mask, and then you can't really be, okay, then that's just a rule. The problem is that we as adults have more trauma in our life, have more experiences in our life. So we're comparing these new set of rules to what we had. But they've never even had that. Or like they did like last year, like they forgot. Like they don't get like, okay, now I got to wear masks. It's like, well, now we're only going to wear black in this family just because I'm in an era of black. Like, I would never do that. But like, they just will, because they're not, it's us that are the ones that are like comparing it. So I say that because when I pose this question to you, but I ask you like I don't know who your favorite artists are from back in the day. So maybe I should ask that first, if they would be able to last. But at the same time, like you guys surviving in this environment now are like those kids, right? Like, oh, okay, well, that's just what it is. Like, I grew up with Instagram. I grew up with this. I got to figure out the game, you know? But even so, that being your reality and you guys having a better understanding of navigating that because you didn't know any different, you're just like, all right, well, that's what we got to do. It still is interesting to me from this perspective because it's like, but even so, would Prince have figured this out? Would he have wanted to figure it out even if he was growing up in this? Definitely if he was just dropped in this time, he would be like, oh, hell no, I'm moving to Mars. I'm like, no, I mean, he was in this time not too long ago. So, but if he was coming up during
Prince
this time.
is definitely one of my favorites. And that's someone I definitely feel like I could see difficulty with definitely like aligning with the like the morals of the things that are going on. Like
Yeah.
I could see him just being like infuriated, being like, nah.
Yeah.
100%. And I will say though, because in thinking about that, I'm thinking of current artists that I feel like kind of influenced me in that aspect of being able to stay true to themselves, like artistically, and not really rely, from what it seems like, at least from my view of it, too much on like social media. And the two names that come to my head are like Donald Glover and Frank Ocean. I feel like those two are artists that kind of embody that similar spirit of like Prince, and you know, we mentioned who was the other ones? Ray Charles, not Ray Charles.
Bob Dylan.
I see you saying like, in
Brown.
a way, the way they maneuver right now would be the way I could see somebody like that maneuvering if
Exactly.
they were able to.
So I think it's possible, but
So
I don't
that-
think it's easy.
No, it's like a lottery ticket. So we were talking about that because I was like, well, and with my friend and my music exec friend, I was like, well, so like, what about like Adele or Billie Eilish? Like, you know, these are people that come on the scene and it's just like, she's like, well, those ones, like, they come on the scene and then you bend to them.
Yeah,
But-
I could see Prince kind of doing that.
Yeah, coming on the scene and bending.
Yeah.
But it's still a matter of just a lot of chances for them
Yeah,
to be
you gotta
seen.
be an anomaly in that case, really, because we
Which
all
is
are
wild,
anomalies.
right?
But like,
So then you think, and then just even the shape of the industry and how you make money in this industry now. And in fact, actually, like talking to my music exec friends a bit, they're like, nobody makes money. No one's making money. That's why you see them doing McDonald's commercials. That's why you see them doing, like, you got to get a brand deal, or you're on tour forever, but you better be popular enough that you're even selling those out because, you know, the profit margins, right? I'm like, damn, that's so wild. Why would anyone want to fucking do music if you approached it as a business. As if you came in as like, I am a business person, and if you looked at all the numbers and the ratios of like the probabilities of something popping off, that's very, it's not just music, like acting too. Like, what the fuck were my parents thinking? Moving 5 brown, not Latino, Filipinos. No, they don't know what a Filipino is. In 1985, your whole family to Los Angeles to try acting. I'm like, that was crazy and audacious, and like, thank you for that. Like, we as a family, you know, like paved the way for a lot of shit, and that wasn't the intention, that wasn't the goal. We're just like doing our thing, trying to do art, you know. But how fucking absurd is that though, when you really think about it? Like, I mean, you guys aren't parents right now, but you think about, really put yourself in those shoes. Like, I got 5 kids. I'm like lower middle class, if not, you know, like blue collar. Yeah, I think I'll move them down to LA to be actors. I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good investment. You do? In 1985? Like, in 1985, it's wild. It's a wild, wild thing. But it's stories like that like, I mean, I can tell you endless stories like that where shit's just like, well, how the fuck did that happen? But it does happen. But then you had other people out here just like on their hustle. But then I know a lot of stories that like, you've been doing music all your life and you're 60 and it never went off, you know?
Well, a lot of people are here because of stories like that, you know? That's the crazy part. Like, even my mom, like, she moved to Texas to Cali. Like, if she never moved to Texas to Cali, like, I should have never met my dad. And like, that was like, she did that in her 20s when it was just like, she was gonna move with my sister, or her sister, and her sister like ended up a few weeks before back not being able to go, and she still went and then found a room, and then ended up like didn't have a job right away for like a few weeks, was trying to find a job, and then got a job, and then like, you know what I'm saying, like it was all like very whim of the, just like, if like, who think my mom would just move to Cali in her 20s from like El Paso,
yeah,
just like alone,
and you just do it, right? So then there's the other thing, going back to planning, right? Like, yeah, I grew up in this industry. I grew up with brothers who were acting, but I was in the cult and everything, but I didn't go the traditional way. Like, I didn't have an agent the whole time. I don't go on auditions. I wasn't trying to get a series. I came back from New York where our family was still broken. I had done my work. I had forgiven my brothers. I'd forgiven myself. I'd gone on all the trips and the journeys and the walks and the tears. I climbed Mount Fuji. I did all the things. I went on that exploration. When I got back from New York, pretty soon after that, you know, serendipitously, the brothers actually end up leaving the cult as well. And they show up, and then we have this, you know, times of healing, and that kind of starts off the way that the cult made me feel. I kind of, for myself, for my piece, started to produce Tarred and Feathered because I wanted to create a space where people who felt tarred and feathered in their lives can come to a place and in this intersection, right? But that wasn't to become a producer. That wasn't to do anything greater than fill the void that I felt all my life. And then I just kept doing that. And then became all these other spaces. And meanwhile I'm doing that, then I'm connecting with other people, and then I'm in a band, and I'm doing all these things. And all of these things really was not planned. I did not have like this goal that I'm going to be a rock star, or I'm going to join this band and we're going to tour. And it was to fulfill me. It's to fulfill my piece. And then now I see myself now with 2 kids later and all this stuff, and I'm in the middle of producing all these movies. And that was never like the intended goal. I mean, it was all in play, but it wasn't like, oh, I want to be doing this. No, I want to be fulfilling myself and feel good about everything that I do. If I'm going to be doing something, I want to be of service to share, to creating and facilitating story and communication. That is my contribution to the world. can I do that? Like, I don't know if I can do that, but well, fuck, I'll just keep showing up every week and fucking with these people, and I'll keep doing those things. And all of these things in the not even search, but the exploration of my inner peace and checking myself, engaging when I've been disturbed from that, and identifying that, and when I've had toxic people in my life, and all of those things, and reassessing and replanning has led me to today. And that wasn't like, oh, massive goal. It just came.
Wow. I feel like that's beautiful to hear that, and I feel like it's rare to find that, honestly, in a lot of folks nowadays that have that search of fulfillment through art and stuff, because I feel like, as you pointed out earlier, a lot of like the business side of music and the art industry as a whole has kind of like, it adds this other layer that kind of distracts from that, I feel like. And it, like, for me, a big portion like of figuring life out is figuring out a way to make like a livable income in something not related to art at all. so that
art can be art.
Art can be art, exactly.
Yeah.
You know?
I vibe with that totally. I mean, and then when and if it happens, and it happens, like, for sure, you know, I was a server and I worked the graveyard shift in in New York and in Long Beach, and I think that everybody in their life should be a server at least once. It's very humbling, and it gives you like a real understanding of like something that you do all the time. You eat out, but you never like, oh shit, those are actually like people, and they got days, and there's all these logistics that go with serving. But yeah, I mean, I've had tons of odd jobs, and like just making it happen, you know. And even in the jobs that I've done, this is gonna go into a whole other thing. It doesn't matter if when you get, how to say this. So if I'm a firm exerciser of my I ams. Like that I am. When you say I am something, is so powerful. So if you say that I am always late, you will always be late. And I know it's like cheesy and new agey, but it is so true. Like, because your thoughts become things. So if you're not I aming yourself properly and truly, then then you're not teeing yourself up very well. So, but it is things like this. Like I am. Like I'm a director, but I am a director. Getting in touch with your non-negotiable I am. So like if I was to say that I am a director, would I say that I am a director in a room with Ava DuVernay and Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese? Probably not. I'd probably just shut the fuck up and just like soak in. But can I walk in that room and say I am kind? Yeah. I am creative. Yeah. I am strong. Yeah. I have integrity. Yeah. So getting away from those titles and going into like who you really are. And then once you get in touch with those I ams and really understand them for yourselves, and what are my and by non-negotiable, I mean non-negotiable. I can be walking a red carpet, going into a business meeting, pouring your coffee, mopping the floor, playing with my kids, walking through Skid Row, running a mic. Those I ams don't change. So when you get to that place where you can be the same person when you're serving coffee and then walk the red carpet. There's this great story. I have a lot of great stories about this, but like my brother Derek, right? He was like, had a guest star on Always Sunny in Philadelphia with like Danny DeVito. But then like that very night, he had one of his hustle jobs was like doing a mobile coffee cart, but it was at the studio, a different studio. And Danny DeVito was at that event. And Danny DeVito goes to get coffee from him. And he's like, hey, don't I? And Derek's like, yeah, what's up? And then they just without ego, without like being ashamed that he's working the coffee car, just like shoot the shit about work that day. And it's just like this wonderful, exchange. The same thing with my brother Dion, right? He was on the series called City Guys. It's like a Saturday morning series for like 5 years. And he was also working these like catering coffee jobs, and people frequently will come up to him and be like, yo, do I know you? Or, yo, you on that show City Guys or whatever? And he'll be like, yeah, man. Like, no shame in the game. Like, because he is who he is. You're so, like, who you are. There's no shame. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be who I am, whether I'm serving you a fucking scone or I'm running a whole fucking shit.
Definitely who I am at my job, checking people's IDs. I'm like, hey, I do a pod. They're like, oh, aren't you like from the thing? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah, I mean, being able to do that. Well, and also those I ams come into play because it's like Dion wasn't like, yeah, I am that. That's why I'm fucking better than this, and whatever, and acting like he's better than people, even though you're like giving them a coffee or whatever. It's really about checking your ego at the door, because it's not even about ego. It's just who you are. It's like, yeah, these are just the things that I am. So I can't have ego about it, because whatever. I'm also serving your coffee, but I'm also an amazing person who can run a room and get shit done.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
So any last things you want to touch on? I think we kind of hit the life affirmations.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll retouch on the life affirmation I mentioned earlier. Was probably the one I was gonna go with, but
I thought that was yours.
Yeah, that was mine. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, cause I did mine.
Okay. Do you have? Well, I mean, I feel like in general, we've been talking a lot, but I guess did we explain the life affirmation segment to her?
Yeah, we did. Remember in the beginning?
I wasn't sure. I wasn't.
Yeah, about like the one thing you look at differently in the last like month or year or any amount of time, really. But like, say you look at it this way, and now you look at it differently.
Okay. What are you guys gonna go first? Or is it just me?
Well, I kind of touched on for me, the one that was really weighing with me was the idea of like the mortality and being able to enjoy the moment of seeing people for the last time, potentially, whenever you see someone, because you don't know when life is gonna take that twist and turn of, whether you go or they go, and it's trying to savor the moment more than anything. That's where my affirmation is to try to savor the moment more with people.
Mine was definitely just try to get in touch more with my like purpose when I'm creating, and like remember what I just thought of it as, and I feel like that's just something I sometimes like forget. So my affirmation really has been just like kind of realizing that like I'll feel less stress or like more at ease like when I kind of get back to just remembering that when I'm creating, like that, like it's about like really like expressing like your emotions and being vulnerable, and then in turn like a lot of good shit happens from that, because people are like you say, your superpower. You know what I'm saying? I feel like sometimes you forget what your superpower is. You gotta look in the mirror and be like, all right, well, what do you do that's like you know what I mean? Like, you know a lot of people that do create. I was still like, what do you do that's different? And I was like, I think I remember those moments are moments when I look back are the moments that people are most like damn, that was different or something, like, So I gotta tap into those moments more.
Cool. On that mortality thing, it reminded me of this line that that I wrote in a poem. Now I gotta go find it somewhere, but it was like when you hug people, hug them with 1,000 hellos never to come. Be that present. In terms of affirmations, I think that as my world is constantly evolving and expanding, realizing that expansion looks very quaint, actually. Like, the more that I expand is the quainter I get, which is a beautiful thing. And I think that as I've been saying this whole time, like everything is everything, and I always believed that, and that's what's delivered me to today. But now, as like larger projects, or maybe the project isn't as large as things that I've worked on before, but my role in that project is different as a larger role or a larger responsibility, and all those things kind of that like I'm very quickly acclimating to and surrendering to more that, oh yeah, everything is everything. That I may have not done this, but I've done this before. Like I've produced all of these things. I've done all of these things, that all of those applications are the same, even though it might be a different program. But all of the things that we did to do those things, like just being able to take all of my know-how to a new environment and being like, yeah, I already know how to do this, or at least I know at least I know what it will entail, that it should entail way more than I kind of anticipate, because it is always like that. And then being able to apply that, and then always be learning, and that you're always learning, but you're always learning, and you're always flexing, not for anyone else, but for your own for your own like one of my like worst things that I feel like if I'm on a job or a project or committed to something and I don't know what you're talking about, like you're referencing, you know, oh, on Hertz blah blah blah, and on the knob 3, and like I hate if I have to know it but I don't know it. I hate that feeling. So being really aware of that and like keeping up to date with that, but then knowing that I have all the tool sets, I have all the tools to do any job. I may not have ever done that job, but I got all the tools to do it, you know? And just like affirming that and realizing like, oh yeah, I got this.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, honestly.
An amazing conversation. I'm so glad we were able to get this in before I head out.
I know. That's so, I'm so glad too, because I didn't realize, and I don't still, because I don't know what the whole trip is about, and just like a little bit, but I can tell that it's like an enormous thing for you. So I'm really happy that we got to get this in before you left.
Thank you. Me too. I'm very happy we were able to get this in. And definitely when I get back, I want to definitely swing by Palms Up and all the other open mic spots.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll still be here. And I'm coming to some more.
Yay! And Zam, bring
and Zam too. She wants to come to
homegirl.
some more too and like go off. And in August, hopefully we'll probably move to New York. Me and him.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go visit you out there. I was actually thinking of going to New York. Like, well, I have 2 shows this weekend, and then I was like, am I going to New York next? Because right now my kids are quarantining with I'm actually staying at my brother's house because I can't afford to get sick, and like I can't get sick. So yeah, so they might be quarantined for like another week, and I have another show next weekend that I'm doing, and I'm like, I might go to New York like Monday to Thursday. So when you guys move out there, I might have to visit y'all.
Should that'd be fun.
Very cool. Are you guys gonna move to Brooklyn or Manhattan, or
Still
you don't know yet?
Yeah, ideally I want to go as close as we can to like the center of Manhattan, just because like I want to be in the.
I know where I'm gonna work
the
too,
full
so
mix.
I'm extra more down for that now because I'm gonna work in Times Square. So
For what?
at my job now, I'm gonna transfer there. So I'm
What
gonna
job
still.
do you have now?
I work at. So I just check
Okay.
IDs. So I'm still gonna do. Cause I want to make music and do the pod out there, but like I already have a job. So, but I'm gonna have to take the train and all that shit like to get to Times Square. So as close as we can to like the middle of everything will be clutch.
But
Oh, I think.
I'm down to go back to Brooklyn because Brooklyn is beautiful and I really do
Down
like
to-
it over there.
And they have one over there too. So I'm not tripping.
That's interesting. I think that once you get there and wherever you land and however long you stay, I'd be really interested to see how that journey changes for you. Because New York is such like a... There's so many things to explore. And as you explore, you're exploring yourself and then your likes and your wants and what aligns with you. And there's so many different areas of the city that's like just different and speaks to you differently. and what ends up calling to you.
Right.
Yeah.
See.
Cool.
Well, peace out, everybody.
Thank you again, and peace out,
Oh
everyone.
yeah, bye.
Oh, sorry. Before we say that, anything you want to let the people know?
Oh yeah, and where to find you, your
Oh, I don't
stuff.
know. What do you need to know?
Just like, anything you want to know about what you got coming up, your play,
This is your time. Just let the folks back at home know anything.
anything.
Well, my name is Arianna Aurora Dolores Basco. A lot of people call me Lady Basco. You can find me at Arianna Basco _ because somebody has Arianna Basco and Arianna Basco _ someday this shit has got to change. You can find Palms Up Academy and the work that we do there at Palms Up Academy. And you can watch the movie. Oh yes, do this. Definitely watch the movie Fabulous Filipino Brothers. How do you find that? If you have a smart TV, you push the microphone and you go, play Fabulous Filipino Brothers, and then it'll just play. Oh, you might have to pay like $5.99 or something. And then what else? I think that's it. I could tell you a lot of other things, but I think we talked for a long time already.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Thank you again, and peace out, everyone.
Bye.
Pine Tree Radio.
It's not even cut yet. And then, now we're still here. I was like hard out. Drop the mic. It's still on. It's still on, guys. Boarding on planes and these trains and these automobiles. Delayed again, battling the blue of these swells. All of those days without you, oh how it kills. Who would have known we'd be here after all of our spells? Bravery, they say, is fortune's best friend. Patience must be salvation's right hand. Track riding on to the roads in the province. Traffic, smoke streets, and the kids to our left at our window. Turning around to my right in the light, I see your face. Hearts don't prepare just today. Damn, now I know that bravery, they say, is fortune's best friend. The patience must be salvation's right hand. Must be salvation's right hand. Must be salvation's right hand.
Pine Tree Radio.
Don't you dare let them make you feel less than. Keep you up at night, fill you with questions, make you doubt your place in society, reconfigure your serenity. You are the bearer of life. Rise up, you queen captain. Don't you let them make you feel less than. You live courage in everything you do. They are not the barometer for your fierce ability. You set the gauge for your warrior agency. Don't you let them make you feel less than. They don't know the price of your elastic body and the presence of broken promises and polarized things as you go ahead and you take your place You're kidding me. They don't get to quantify your worth. They don't get to measure your value. They don't get to retract your world. Don't you dare let them fuck with your legs. You are not less than. Bury and try to bury your spirit. Shame and shame. They are going to try to tarnish your name. You go ahead and puff that chest filled with milk high. You eyes glowing. Bees knees. Top dame. Your stock is up. Your goods are refined. Your brokenness is straight. Don't you dare let them make you feel less than. You better, you glorious ringleader of resilience, you better dance in that brave soul brilliance. Let's go. Take a risk. Vocally. And bring us out. Did you know